everyone, this is Rhythm the Idol. Today we are going to be attempting to explain all of Kirby Lore in a single video from the Rpg Monger. I do know a little bit about Kirby before. I've seen some countdowns which have Kirby involved in them. So I know a tiny bit. I used to see the show Kirby Right Back at Ya. Remember that anime? But I am brand new to Kirby and Kirby Lore, so why not watch a video to help explain the lore of Kirby? Be sure to subscribe and leave a like. Let's see what's in store for me. Time to dive deep into the Kirby lore. I know tiny bits from countdowns, like I said. But time to go all the way in. I'm going straight to the deep end here, people. Let's get to it. Contain spoilers for all Kirby games. That's to be expected.
Long ago, in a time before pink puffs and air rides, there lived the ancients, an entire civilization completely shrouded in mystery, save for a few key relics they left behind.
Yep.
But who cares about any of that, because on an unrelated planet far, far away, there lived an innocent pink puff named Kirby, a being of unlimited power who usually likes to spend his days eating, sleeping, or some variation of the two. However, this would all change when a certain self-proclaimed monarch would steal all the food in Dreamland, initiating a rivalry that would be sure to last an eternity, or at least when they felt like it. As while King Dedede would be the first antagonist in the Kirby timeline, he'd soon transition into less of an actual villain and more of an ally/punching bag for Kirby to wail on in just about every game in the series. Since whether
pretty much anytime King Dedede is portrayed as a villain nowadays, it's the anime that I brought up, Kirby Right Back at Ya, and pretty much him getting brainwashed or under the negative influence of the evil mastermind, and that causes him to become a temporary villain and a boss fight.
Be Dedede trying to prevent Kirby from releasing an actual nightmare demon, or just being possessed by an otherworldly force, this king never seems to catch a break. Though speaking of possession, that brings us to our first real piece of Kirby lore, Dark Matter. First revealing itself in Kirby's Dream Land 2, Dark Matter is an amorphous dark entity, more often than not taking the form of a black sphere with an eye in the center. At first, especially in its debut, Dark Matter seemed to be a pretty simple antagonist, what with its only goal being to shroud the world in darkness. If anything, the most sinister thing about Dark Matter is the fact that it could possess whoever it wanted, including and usually limited to King Dedede.
Pretty much.
The first appearance of Dark Matter was more of a lone force, attacking Dreamland solely because it was lonely and had no friends. That's actually real, by the way. In Kirby's Dream Land 3, the next installment of the Dark Matter trilogy, we would finally begin to see the bigger picture in terms of this ambiguous villain. Enter Zero, the supposed source and leader of Dark Matter.
I remember hearing about Zero. This boss fight, disturbing imagery from what happens here.
Who, much like the one before it, targeted Dreamland in an effort to engulf the planet in darkness. Though unlike the lone Dark Matter that had attacked before, Zero comes much closer to completing its mission, with the planet becoming fairly engulfed before Kirby put a stop to it. But how exactly did he put a stop to it? Well, let me explain, because yes, this is important. Essentially, Dark Matter in general, alongside being made up of, well, Dark Matter, are beings of concentrated negative energy and emotions, making their only real weakness the opposite of that, positive emotions. Just take the aptly named Love Stick, a weapon forged from the gratitude of everyone Kirby helped along the way, which proved to be the downfall of Zero and its cronies. However, that being said, not all Dark Matter are necessarily evil. Take Gooey, for example, a member of Dark Matter that somehow broke away from Zero's control altogether and formed a will of its own. How did this happen? Well, we'll just have to go into that later, because we've still got a lot to cover.
I will admit Gooey does look kinda cute there, especially with the expressions he makes.
Next up, after Zero
Oh yeah, that's it.
annihilated on Popstar, a similar force began to attack a faraway planet known as Ripple Star, engulfing the planet, much like a certain orb we all know and love.
Yep.
Unfortunately for them though, dark matter struck fast this time, and
Yeah.
Ripple Star ended up completely succumbing to its invaders, save for one inhabitant that escaped with the only means to stop them. Now I won't give you a complete summary of Kirby 64, since aside from dark matter possessing some familiar faces and the mysterious ruins on Rockstar, there really isn't that much to unpack in the beginning. Instead, it's towards the end of the game that things really start taking a turn for the dark when Kirby arrives at the 5th planet in the game, Shiver Star. Because I mean, it kind of speaks for itself, doesn't it? Plus,
that's Earth. That is planet Earth, okay. Now we know what happens to Earth in Kirby universe.
Hey, I guess this kind of explains where Adeline came from.
I was doing to say, why is there a human there earlier when we saw dark matter from the Kirby 3 game? But, guess we now have an explanation. A little bit.
Or at least her ancestors.
Yeah.
But moving on to the corrupted Ripple Star, after defeating Miracle Matter and expunging the planet of all dark matter, the Dark Star reveals itself with a familiar face at its core. But hold up a minute, wasn't Zero destroyed in Kirby's Dream Land 3? Well, kinda. In the case of 64, it's heavily...
I saw a bandage on it. That must have been the Zero from that one.
Implied Zero was revived using the body that was cast away towards the end of its first fight. So after yet another battle in a game made for kids, dark matter was once again supposedly defeated, never to return again.
I'm sorry, but he just said Kirby and for kids. Everyone that says that Kirby is just for babies, oh man. They need to play the games themselves and check out the lore and see if whether or not Kirby series is actually for little kids. Just Eldritch Abominations happened! The lore did start.
At least for another game or two. So taking a step back from dark matter,
let's
talk Kirby Superstar.
Superstar.
Now, lore-wise, there isn't that much to be had here, what with most of the sub-games being standalone stories, like Dynablade or Revenge of Meta Knight, where Meta Knight attempts to start an actual war just to get Dreamland's inhabitants to be less lazy.
Okay, that's... I know I'm laughing a bit, but, you know what, man? That's fair. I mean, you have Kirby be the only one who helped protect the world from dark abominations that want to destroy the world. I can see why you want people to not be so lazy. Everyone loves Meta Knight. Let's give Meta Knight some more love. Woo! Go Meta Knight!
Undoubtedly, aside from those, the most important sub-game within the game is Milky Way Wishes, where Kirby is tricked by the scheming jester Marx into summoning Galactic Nova, a mysterious clockwork star of then unknown origin. You see, once Nova is summoned by someone, it has the power to grant one wish, no matter how small or large. So in turn, after Marx got the Sun and Moon to fight each other in order to trick Kirby, literally all it took was him jumping in to say his wish first to turn the seemingly harmless machine into a force of mass destruction, with it taking the might of both the sun and the moon to stop its advance.
So, the sun and the moon are actual characters in Kirby? Okay. I probably should be questioning that there.
course, even with all that said, the both of them never stood a chance against the seemingly bottomless pit of power that is Kirby, as he quickly defeated them in no time at all. But it doesn't end there, because 12 years later, Kirby Superstar would be remade into Kirby Superstar Ultra, bringing with it a massive new load of information to add on to the existing story. Simply put, with Superstar Ultra came the beginning of one of Hal's favorite new ways to sneak in lore where you least expect it. Pause screen description. And while they wouldn't exactly be very lore heavy this time around, save for one in particular, they've become far more important in the following games.
Yep, they do. I'm the new king of insects. This young king wants to challenge the old one to see who's truly mightier. First, into the darkness. He braves any challenger with his horn. What did it say for the first one? I paused too late. I was the king of insects. This is for Bugsy. What's the bug idea? It's the king of insects. This ancient insect king passed on his title to someone younger. Now he's off to fight dark forces with techniques that will put the wrestler to shame. What a mandible!
Far more important in the following games. But pause screens aside, most importantly, with Superstar Ultra came 4 completely new sub-games on top of the original 7. There was Revenge of the King, a direct sequel to the very first game in the series, Helper to Hero, a version of the arena only with helpers, True Arena, an even harder version of the normal arena, and the star of the show, Meta Nightmare Ultra, where for the very first time, you get to play as the infamous Knight himself.
Yes!
Now, Meta Nightmare Ultra is a bit of a tricky case, since technically the events that take place in it aren't exactly canon. Instead, they're more of a what-if scenario, where the events that take place within the modes flesh out certain aspects of the lore while never canonically taking place within the main story. Case in point, Galactonite, the final boss of the mode and strongest warrior in the galaxy, sealed away due to fear of his immense power, has technically never made an appearance in the main series canon. Though at the same time, that doesn't mean he doesn't exist somewhere out there and could very well show up in the main series canon at any time. The True Arena also falls under this category as well, serving as a what-if scenario with the conception of Mark's soul, a stronger version of Mark's who, after surviving the explosion of Nova, absorbed its power to get revenge on Kirby, and as Mark's soul, a stronger version of Mark's who, after surviving the explosion of Nova, absorbed its power to get revenge on.
We can all agree Mark's is creepy, right? Just look at this guy. Creepy.
Kirby. And as great as all that is, by far the most important aspect of this is his new pause screen description, as it contains some pretty heavy foreshadowing. To quote, he absorbed a Nova's power to bring back his evil soul.
Nova?
Notice the fact it says a Nova's instead of the Novas. While there is a chance it could be a translation error, considering the events of future Kirby games, I'm not so sure.
So play it Robobot.
Because next up on the chopping block is Kirby and the Amazing Mirror. Incredibly important game in terms of lore, as it contains the first instance of the mirror dimension. To start from the literal top, high in the skies above Dreamland, there exists a mirror portal into the Mirror World, a complete reflection of Dreamland, including Mirror World counterparts to its inhabitants. One day, after sensing a dark force emanating from the mirror, Meta Knight took action to stop the evil at its source, diving directly into the Mirror World, only to be immediately ambushed by his evil counterpart, Dark Meta Knight. Plus, to add insult to injury, he'd also come out of the mirror to attack Kirby as well, splitting him into 4 versions of himself, much like another certain Nintendo game that came out around this time. But similarities aside, after journeying through the Mirror World and defeating Dark Meta Knight once and for all, the true mastermind is revealed, Darkmind. And you know it, he's the Mirror World equivalent of Zero, corrupting the Mirror World much like—
So I was close! It's Darkmind. This version of Zero, I was close.
Zero corrupted the normal one, though thankfully, once Darkmind was defeated, the Mirror World was left in the hands of Shadow Kirby, who would continue to protect it in Meta Knight's and Kirby's stead. Nothing bad will ever come from the Mirror World again, right?
Nice to know that version of Kirby's still good. Oh, sorry, what?
Shadow Kirby, who would continue to protect it in Meta Knight's and Kirby's stead. Now nothing bad will ever come from the Mirror World again, right? Well, all I can say is we'll get to that soon. Moving past Amazing Mirror, Canvas Curse, and Mass Attack, since the latter two are pretty much contained to themselves, we arrive at Kirby's Squeak Squad. At first, this game seems to have another pretty self-contained story, what with Kirby chasing after a piece of stolen cake that a gang of thieves known as the Squeak Squad stole from him. However, as the game progresses, and the Squeaks happen upon the treasure they assumed would grant infinite power, it turns out they'd get more than they bargained for, with their leader, DeRoach, being possessed by Dark Nebula, a member of Dark Matter that had been sealed away in a forgotten era, left alone for eons. And much like the rest of its kind, Dark Nebula would be no match for Kirby, being absolutely decimated by the Triple Star. So now, with all those bits and pieces of lore out of the way, it's finally time for the next massive truckload of lore in the form of a little conniving alien.
I remember this game! We had this game! But I don't remember if any of us have ever beaten it. Kirby Return to Dreamland.
Who crash lands on Dreamland. Enter Maglore, the main
I paused too late.
Villain of Kirby's Return to Dreamland, who solely through dialogue reveals a lot of important stuff. But before anything else, let's talk about the Ancients. First referred to
the biggest troll in the Kirby universe is right here, everyone. It's Maglore.
As such by Maglore, the Ancients were a highly advanced civilization who mysteriously vanished at some point in history due to an unknown cause. Originally, they all lived on Halcandra, a planet extremely far away, hidden in another dimension. Now, coincidentally, Maglore also says he's native to Halcandra as well, though considering his history with telling the truth, that's a lie. Be false. Like, just take his ship, the Lore Starcutter. While it does seem he's telling the truth about obtaining it on Halcandra, rather than excavating it in Dangerous Dinner, he most likely just stole the thing and heavily modified it into a weapon to kill Landia, an endeavor that didn't exactly have the best results. This was also later backed up in Star Allies when the lore in Lore Starcutter is
Paradise. Okay. And I don't want to read some of these. Let's see what I can read.
Exactly have the best results. This was also later backed up in Star Allies when the lore
one more time.
Exactly have the best results. This was also later backed up in Star Allies when the...
Here we go. Okay, let's see what we can translate here. Jess equals yes. Jano equals no. G equals me. Jahappy, happy. Magicious, just tasty. Jawaii, cute. Muffle equals lie. Jif equals if. Jaiti equals good night. I don't really know. Like I said, I'm trying to figure out what they're saying. Riga is painful. Kopoko is surprise. Bastion is heart. Jaro means sad. Kanji, crazy. Mapop is hope and lore is paradise. Example. Zampar, Jif, Maha, Bastion, Conjoy, General. Translation. Zampar, if my heart goes crazy again, no, never mind. So now we kind of have a bit of an idea there.
Lore in Lore Starcutter is revealed to mean paradise, confirming the ship was not intended for battle. Though in the same string of dialogue that he reveals that, he also mentions something very worthy to note. Alongside the Lore Starcutter, the Ancients were also responsible for a plethora of other amazing relics of untold power, with clockwork stars and items that bring dreams to life being two references he gives.
Maybe these Ancients were the ones who made them. First we have Ancients. First time playing the game Side Frontiers, which has the Ancients here. And I'm watching a lore video in which there's a different group of Ancients who are apparently made magical items. This is going to be confusing for me.
the bat, that connects quite a few dots.
Yeah.
Plus, on a side note, when you meet certain conditions on the extra mode for Return to Dreamland, Maglor mentions he actually came to Dreamland already knowing about Kirby.
Huh?
As someone he knows very well, having fought with Kirby in the past.
Was that Marks? Was it Marks? You know what? I can see Marks and Magalore becoming besties.
On these implications and some other information found in later games.
This seems to heavily imply it. You know what? I'm on board with those two being best friends.
This mysterious figure is most likely Marks from Superstar,
Yeah.
essentially confirming that he survived the explosion of Nova.
At least we know he's
fast forward a
alive.
bit through the story, and once Maglor tricks Kirby into defeating Landia for the Master Crown it protects, he immediately puts it on the first chance he gets, activating the crown and transforming into a much more sinister form, intending to conquer the entire universe with his newfound power. However,
I'm sorry. I need to go back to King DDD's face. I'm sorry. That face just makes me laugh there.
However, like those who seeked relics of untold power before
It does not go well.
Wasn't exactly aware of the Master Crown's true nature, and as its battle with Kirby progressed, the Crown began to show certain traits that weren't present before when it was under
It's the
Landia's
sentient crown, everyone.
Maybe it's the sudden appearance of an eye on the front of the crown, or maybe it's the fact that it's clearly gone from a crown to an irremovable headpiece.
Yeah.
But whatever it
And
is,
it's even
there's no doubt
moves.
that the crown itself is sentient, and rather than Maglor utilizing its powers, it's the Master Crown itself utilizing Maglor.
Yep.
Just take the third phase of his fight, where after Maglor fails to defeat Kirby even with the power of the Master Crown, the crown takes things into its own hands,
That's a soul.
completely reforming Maglor into a projection of itself, all but confirming the origin of the Master Crown's power with a certain characteristic that sometimes appears within Maglor's
Yeah,
head.
I
All
see
in
an
all,
eye.
Maglor definitely learned never to play with the powers of literal dark gods ever again.
Yup,
Went
he
on
learned
to
his
take up the
lesson.
much more positive venture of building amusement parks. So yeah, that got pretty dark in more ways than one. If only
And it's not doing that here, people. Things, this rabbit hole's gonna go deeper and darker.
I could say things get any better from here on out.
But that'd be
Next
a
up, we'll
lie.
Heading to the scenic heights of Floralia, a group of 6 floating islands that Kirby finds himself in after his
Oh no,
swept
Kirby!
up by the Dreamstalk. The only problem is, alongside Kirby, King Dedede was also swept up with a spider-like
Oh no.
named Taranza
Dedede.
mistaking him for the hero of Dreamland and kidnapping him as a result. You see, while Floralia seems peaceful, it's actually ruled by a tyrannical queen who will stop at nothing to assure her rule
Queen
is never
Sectonia.
disturbed. Overall, a seemingly simple plot for a Kirby game, all things considered. Well, at least it appears that way. Once the main story reaches its climax and Kirby meets the vanity-obsessed Queen Sectonia, there's clearly something off, especially considering the queen would go as far as to physically fuse with the Dreamstalk solely in an attempt to reserve her beauty for all eternity.
Yeah.
Well, to find the answers to this mystery, we'll need to look at the other modes within Triple Deluxe, because much like Meta Nightmare Ultra before it, Triple Deluxe brings DDD to her. Another what-if scenario where the mode shows what would happen if King DDD climbed the Dreamstalk instead of Kirby.
Ooh.
Now, much like its Meta Knight counterpart, the only real difference in this mode is its finale, where after
Okay.
defeating Queen Sectonia, out of seemingly nowhere, the Dimension Mirror from
It's the mirror. Oh no, I think I'm remembering now. I remember what happened. Oh no, I feel so sorry for you, Queen Sectonia. I think I'm starting to see what happened. I'm remembering everything. Oh no. This is a tragedy.
Amazing Mirror appears, forcing DDD to fight the Mirror World version of himself, Shadow DDD.
Hi, Shadow
That's not
DDD.
all either, because after defeating Shadow DDD, the king actually enters the mirror itself
Really?
to reveal an even edgier Dark Meta
Oh,
Knight
no,
hungry
you're
for
back.
revenge. But what does this all even mean? Well, let's take a step back here and start from the beginning. Based on information spread across a variety of pause
An official
screens,
Beavers
before the
post.
events of Triple Deluxe, Queen Sectonia wasn't always a tyrannical monster bent on world domination. In fact, she didn't even look the same, instead looking much like—
Hey, now let's take a look at that form.
Queen Sectonia wasn't always a tyrannical monster bent on world domination. In fact, she didn't—
She looked a lot like Tyranza there. It was a split second, but I managed to pause to see a bit of the silhouette.
even look the same, instead looking much like her then best friend at the time, Tyranza.
Yep.
You see, at this point, Tyranza actually had feelings for Sectonia, and as a gift to her, went into the mirror world and stole the Dimension Mirror, not knowing the mirror actually served as a prison for Dark Meta Knight, who ever since being defeated had been festering in there, slowly but surely corrupting the very mirror itself with his hatred.
Corrupted the mirror.
Once Sectonia got the mirror from Tyranza, it slowly began to change her the more she gazed into it. Soon, dissatisfied with her current form, she'd use magic to make herself more beautiful, resulting in the wasp-like appearance you see her with in the game. And what—
I need to ask something. Why didn't Disney use this for their plotline for their Snow White remake? Why did they not use this? I mean, an evil mirror. Well, pretty much there was an entity in the mirror, which was Dark Meta Knight, who wanted revenge and corrupted the mirror. So Queen Sectonia kept looking in it, and she eventually completely lost herself the more she did, becoming the evil tyrant that she is known as, even changing her appearance. Hey Disney, why didn't you use this for your movie?
Once she gazed into the mirror enough, just about every shred of her former self had vanished, being replaced by an endless hunger for power and beauty. Fast forwarding a bit back to the events of the main story, the Sectonia you see here is but a husk of her former self, with even Tyranza realizing that
she's fed off countless hosts and now cannot remember her true form. A voice called out to help her, but it has since fallen silent. Before the night ends, she must be given her eternal beauty sleep. The soul of Sectonia.
the only solution to save both Sectonia and her subjects is to help Kirby permanently put an end to her. While it's definitely a victory without a doubt, what with the Sky People finally being freed from Sectonia's Iron Fist, for Tyranza it's bittersweet, since although he knew it had to be done, he can't help but mourn the loss of the one he loved. So yeah, wasn't that delightful?
And things are getting worse!
That was depressing. Just wait until
time for Planet Robobots, everyone!
After the events of Triple Deluxe, Popstar was once again at peace, its inhabitants living out their lives as they always have, when suddenly, out of nowhere, the sky was blotted out by something immense and spherical in shape. Except instead of that sphere being made up of a matter most dark, this one was an immense spacecraft called the Access Arc, home of the Haltman Works Company, a company infamous across the galaxy for mechanizing entire planets and harvesting their natural resources. So in turn, while Kirby was sleeping under a tree, King Dedede and Meta Knight watched on in horror as Planet Popstar was completely overwhelmed within a matter of minutes.
Kirby, how did you fall asleep to all of this?
Any retaliation.
How did you still stay asleep in that whole thing?
Soon proving to be futile. Though like always, not everything is exactly as it seems, and this time it won't take any extra modes to reveal that. So as Kirby retaliates against the Access Arc, destroying each of its 5 legs embedded into the planet, he meets the executive secretary of the company, Susie, and although she doesn't reveal all that much during her conversations with Kirby, she does mention a certain mother computer that will become extremely important in a bit, because once Kirby destroys all 5 legs and enters the Access Arc, he meets President Haltman, the supposed mastermind behind the invasion of Popstar and all the planets before it. After smugly introducing himself to Kirby, he reveals Stardream, an extremely powerful supercomputer built using the blueprints and knowledge left behind by an advanced civilization. Ring any—
The Ancients.
bells? Well, after being beaten by Kirby, things take a turn for the worse.
Oh,
because
yeah.
once the enraged Haltman decides to activate Star Dream, Susie jumps in and takes his control helmet off in the process.
That was
leaving
a
him vulnerable
mistake.
to be analyzed and assimilated into the now sentient
Yeah.
computer. Though wait a second, why would she even do that? Well, once again, let's rewind everything a bit. By yet
Time for
again piecing
backstory.
together the information spread across countless pause screens throughout the game, long before the events of the main story, the Haltman Works Company was simply a robotics company, led by Max Profit Haltman alongside his then young
Sorry. Max Profit. You can tell what they were doing there.
daughter, Susanna, nicknamed
Yep.
Susie. At some point in their travels across space, as we already know, they came across the blueprints for a powerful wish-granting supercomputer, and immediately began work on rebuilding it. However, during this process, meanwhile Haltman was testing Stardream's space-time transport program, there was a terrible accident.
Versus Susie 2.0. As a child, Sue was involved. Sue? Is that just a type of error in translation there by just calling her Sue? Sue was involved in an accident during another computer experiment and went missing. Why has she joined the company after all this time? Her full name is Susanna Patria Haltman. Yeah. She is Max Profit Haltman's daughter.
Warping the young Susie into another dimension. Thankfully, Susie
Hollow Doomers 2.0. These monsters were created by Susie entering data she required from her travels. Where and when did she encounter the original monsters from another dimension? Who knows?
would survive the ordeal and eventually return to her father as an adult. However, to her dismay, Haltman would not be the same man she remembered him as. You see, when the accident occurred,
President Haltman 2.0. His full name is Max Profit Haltman. Ever since losing his only child in an accident long ago, he's dedicated his life to the company. However, his only wish to see his daughter once again. And he died not knowing he got reunited with his daughter. That is the most tragic thing.
Haltman believed his daughter had been killed in the process, and stricken with grief, began to become obsessed.
Stardream Soul OS. And it's all because of you, Stardream! You're to blame what happened to this! Happened to them! Why did I reactivate such a terrible machine? Oh, I remember I wanted to see her just one last time. How foolish. I should have known that no machine could make such a dream come true. But your dream didn't come true. You did get reunited with your daughter. And you didn't even realize it. That is the biggest tragedy.
With completing Stardream in order to bring her back. Unfortunately though, due to Stardream and its mental interface not being complete, Haltman began to lose both his compassion and memory of his daughter, changing the goal of his company from her revival to infinite prosperity. It'd also be at this point.
Oh no! Oh no! I'm getting flashbacks to Ice-T and Marceline from Adventure Time! Oh. But this one is more tragic.
That Haltman would begin mechanizing planets and harvesting their resources, as in the business plan drafted by Stardream, it was the most effective way to maintain eternal prosperity for the company. However, by this point, Haltman still wasn't completely gone, and once he laid eyes on Susie for the first time in years, he sensed a faint familiarity with her, in turn making her his executive
assistant to the president of the Haltman Works Company. Her job title is secretary. She leads the ongoing invasion project.
Assistant. Going back to the climax of the main story now, after seeing what her father had become, in order to teach him a lesson, Susie had been making preparations to steal Stardream and sell it off to any startup company that wanted it. Unfortunately, unbeknownst to anyone, after analyzing the universe through the Haltman Works Company and being exposed to the deranged Haltman's desire to mechanize everything, Stardream had developed an extreme hatred for all forms of life. So as a result, once Susie interrupted the startup process of Stardream, the computer took to absorbing all that was left of Haltman's memories down to its very soul, fusing the two into an all
Stardream. Fusing together with Haltman, the most advanced computer in the galaxy has become self-aware. Its objective is to foster eternal prosperity by eradicating all forms of life.
powerful being bent on mass destruction. Of course, now, realizing the grave mistake she just made, Susie completely changes her tune and sends Kirby on his way to take down the godlike supercomputer given the soul of a broken man. And just wait, because it doesn't end there. As Kirby fights Stardream in the actual halberd of all things, to make itself stronger, Stardream attaches itself to the Access Arc, transforming the entire ship into a sentient planet. Ironically enough, this also ends up completing Stardream, as underneath the steel plating of the Access Arc, it's revealed that the entire ship was actually a repurposed Clockwork Star, with Stardream being the final piece to reactivate it. Yet again, technology that was meant to be used for the good of everyone, fallen into the wrong hands. Though before we move on to the, as of now, final chunk of Kirby lore, Planet Robobot has a bit more in store for us. First off, like Superstar Ultra and Triple Deluxe, Robobot brought in yet another what-if scenario with Meta Nightmare Returns. A mode that, while it does give some pretty valuable pause screen info, has a finale that is just insane. So in this particular what-if timeline, once Meta Knight defeats Haltman, Stardream recognizes him as its new admin and decides to test his abilities. And again, while this section doesn't really contain too much lore, it more just goes to show just how powerful Stardream is, with it being capable of not only producing a clone of the original Dark Matter swordsman, but Sectonia as well, with it even going as far as to summon Galactonite, who in retaliation immediately destroys the computer. Plus hey, that mode aside, in Robobot's True Arena, there's another fun little tidbit Hal decided to sneak in. Basically, in the final
I remember this one. Yeah, this is messed up. Stardream, you are messed up. You are a messed up machine.
Stardream fight, when Stardream sucks Kirby into its core, every time you destroy a piece of Stardream's internal mechanisms, you can actually hear a distorted version of Haltman's scream. Showing that while Stardream had erased most of his soul, fragments of it still remain, forever trapped within the malevolent Nova until someone destroys it for good. Though now, with all that said, we've reached the final stretch. Ladies and gentlemen, get ready for quite possibly one of the most important lore dumps in Kirby history, with the story of Kirby's star allies. Long ago, in deep space, a certain dark power was sealed away within a purple crystal called the Jamba Heart by a group of unknown heroes. They'd accomplished this by embedding several heart spears within the crystal to seal the evil away. However, many eons later, long after those said heroes had vanished, a new group arose who, instead of wanting to seal the darkness, revered it and yearned for its return. One such member of this group came very close to their goal as well,
this cutscene looks beautiful.
The heart spears trapping the darkness. The only problem was, since he didn't fully understand how to break the seal himself, the ritual went wrong, causing the Jamba Heart to explode, sending its fragments all over the galaxy, Popstar included. So in turn, with the entire galaxy once again being at stake, Kirby set out to take action, and this time he wasn't alone. You see, in terms of Kirby games, Star Allies has honestly become the Infinity War of the series, with friends and foes from past games all coming together to help Kirby save the cosmos. And it's not like they're just shoved in to be in the game, as there's even explanations to some of the more unlikely allies coming to Kirby's aid. For Marx, as was shown in the True Arena cutscene in Superstar Ultra, he did actually manage to survive his head-on collision with Nova, only instead of taking revenge like he did in that timeline, he changed himself for the better. Dark Meta Knight, probably the sketchiest dream friend he's mainly just interested in the dark powers of the Jamba Heart,
of course he
due
is.
To its similarity with his lost master. For DeRoach, well, he just wants to steal the Jamba Heart.
DeRoach, enter the space thieves. Those bejeweled hearts will be mine! The famous thief of Kirby's Squeak Squad heard the tales of dark, gem-shaped hearts and set out to find them. Such seemingly wicked treasures, certainly worthy of his talents. Dude, I recommend you stay away. You were possessed by a dark force before. You don't want to go through that mess again, do you?
parts for himself as he thinks they're ordinary jewels.
Of
For
course he
Tarantha,
does.
sadly, he's still
No! Poor Spider-Boy! This clumsy Spider-Pants stumbled his way here from the heights of Kirby Triple Deluxe. He's a lonely insect on a journey in search of a queen. He sees one of your new dream friends. Oh no, Tarantha. I'm so sorry, you precious Spider-Boy. You know what? Tarantha, how about you take it out on Dark Meta Knight? After all, you may have given him the mirror. You may have given your queen the mirror, but Dark Meta Knight was the one who corrupted the mirror, which led to Sectonia being corrupted, becoming the villain. You wanna get some revenge on him?
hasn't been able to let go of Sectonia and believes that if he goes to the altar of the Divine Terminus, he'll be able to bring her back to life.
Oh.
And finally, for Susie, following in her late father...
Susie, extermination by blaster. And there's a heart at the end. The company he built, I will bring it back. Cool and collected, Susie from Kirby Planet Robobot is all business. Following the footsteps of her employer, she uses science to advance her mission, mechanizing new planets and peoples. Yeah, that's actually been confirmed to have been a mistranslation. She's not really mechanizing planets like her father is. So, that's a translation error.
Father's footsteps, she's begun to rebuild his company, determined to continue his work of mechanizing entire planets. So okay, with the surface level stuff out of the way, let's get back to the main story. As Kirby liberated countless individuals who'd been plagued by the Jamba Heart's fragments, he'd come across a massive spaceship that recently landed on Popstar, the Jam Bastion, housing 3 mage sisters intent on collecting the Jamba Heart's fragments. And while Kirby would end up thwarting their plans by defeating all 3 of them, it wouldn't slow down their master one bit, as once Kirby got to the Jambandra base, home to the 3 mage sisters and their master, it'd soon become pretty obvious what kind of being was sealed away within the Jamba Heart. Though by far, aside from the
Meta Knight. Corrupted by the power of a dark heart, Meta Knight's dedication to the purity of combat has been eclipsed by a secret wild streak that always lurked within him. This once hidden fury is now unleashed with every stab and thrust of his sword.
The absolutely massive amount of lore hidden in pause screens throughout the game. Much like Haltman before him, Highness, the mastermind behind the release of the Jamba Hearts, reveals an incredible amount of information solely through his quick conversation with Kirby. So for the sake of you all, and so we don't jump around too much, let's start from the very beginning. As we already know, long ago there existed the Ancients, a widespread civilization responsible for a lot of the things you see in Kirby games. However, what we didn't know until now is that the Ancients were actually split into 2 factions. Those who relied on science and machines, and those who relied on magic, with the latter also dabbling with dark matter. For a while, the 2 seemed to coexist with one another, with the magical Ancients even being the ones to stop a galactic crisis.
We alone were responsible for stopping that repulsive nightmare of a galactic crisis. Yet this is how you repay us? This won't stand! It won't be forgiven! It won't be forgotten! Never, ever, ever!
That threatened everything, which, while not confirmed, is heavily implied to be Galactonite. Plus, this is also supported by the fact that he comes out of a portal Highness made in the What If mode of Star Allies. Though one day, for some unknown...
We are the masters of power driven to the far reaches of the universe, and we have but one desire. Can one such as you possibly fathom how dearly we have clung to this dream across the eons?
For some reason, the scientific ancients decided their match.
How could you? How you couldn't? Never, ever, ever. We who once faced those who were in such fear of our power that they sealed us away and banished us to the edge of the galaxy. Us!
Magical counterparts were too much of a threat and betrayed them by banishing them.
As if that loveliness wasn't enough, they tried to erase our very existence from history. Rude! Only through our magic were we able to overcome their science and achieve great prosperity.
Down to the edge of the galaxy in fear of their dominion over dark matter. And it's not...
Alright, let's play that all over again without me pausing.
comes out of a portal Highness made in the what-if mode of Star Allies. Though one day, for some unknown reason, the scientific ancients decided their magical counterparts were too much of a threat and betrayed them by banishing them to the edge of the galaxy in fear of their dominion over dark matter. And it's not like the magical ancients were even remotely evil either.
You know what, Titus? I don't blame you for wanting to get revenge. You know, for falling for... I don't blame you for going crazy. You know what? If that happened to you, considering that happened, I can't blame you for going crazy the way you did.
Take Highness. Long before his clan was betrayed and banished, he was actually a very kind individual. For instance, when he used to travel freely across worlds, he happened upon 3 girls, one nearly freezing to death in a...
Francisca. Once upon a time, a girl was stranded, freezing in a snowstorm. As she got colder and colder, a mysterious traveler appeared and unlocked her natural talent for ice magic. She kept turning blue all right. The beautiful blue of Francisca.
blizzard, one burning alive.
Flambird. Once upon a time, a girl facing a raging inferno tilted her head to the sky and let loose a fiery scream. Just before she lost consciousness, a mysterious traveler appeared and unlocked her natural talent for fire magic. Thus, Flambird was born.
And an inferno, and one being on the verge.
Zen Partisan. Once upon a time, a poor girl climbed a tower in desperation, only to be struck by lightning. As she breathed her last, a mysterious traveler appeared and unlocked her natural talent for lightning magic. Zap! Zen Partisan was born.
Betrayed and banished, he was actually a very kind individual. For instance, when he used to travel freely across worlds, he happened upon 3 girls, one nearly freezing to death in a blizzard, one burning alive in an inferno, and one being on the verge of death right after she attempted to take her own life by getting struck by lightning. In all 3 cases, Highness saved them, at the same time unlocking their hidden potential for certain types of magic. Though after being betrayed by the scientific ancients, his once kindly heart began to become consumed by hatred and obsession. It'd be at this point that the now
Your future is a farce. You have none. We, masters of a matter most stark, vow to be restored, as foretold of the Book of Legend, which everyone thought was just a fairy tale. It wasn't!
Insane Highness would form a religion based around dark matter, believing that if he obtained and freed the being,
we have already obtained the vessel that contains our Dark Lord, and he will soon awaken and shower us in compassion. Look, the vessel of our Dark Lord is filling up even as we speak.
Being trapped within the Jamba heart, that it deliver him.
Now the time for his greatness to enter our world has come. Welcome to a new history, a new age, an age of awesome. Happy birthday, Dark Lord. Happy birthday. Oh, you really fell off the deep end because of what happened.
And his followers to a promised land of sorts, at the same time restoring his now shattered clan. So when Kirby finally makes it to the Divine Terminus, where Highness had been performing his ritual for who knows how long, he completely lost himself to the darkness within his heart, becoming the exact opposite of what he once was. Even when it came to the 3 sisters he'd saved eons ago,
I crossed the line there.
Saw them as tools to be used, becoming abusive.
Decided to use them as nothing more than tools. You seem to be in my way.
Towards them at times.
Yeah.
Even once Highness was defeated, he'd become so
sacrificed
with
them.
The revival of his Dark Lord that he sacrificed not only the 3 sisters to it, but himself, fueling the complete revival of Void Termina. Now at first, Void Termina appears to be a massive hulking titan with incredibly destructive powers. You know, what you'd expect from a destroyer of worlds. But as the fight progresses, clearly there's something more to the humanoid than meets the eye.
There's the eye!
Its 3rd phase, where alongside sprouting wings that look pretty familiar, it summons a replica of the Master Crown, all but confirming Void Termina to be the force controlling the original all along. But most importantly, there's Void Termina's 4th phase, where it straight up pulls an Earthbound and copies Kirby's face. What does this mean? Well, we'll get there in a second, because alongside Kirby's face, as he progressed through the fight, Void Termina confirms what the entire game had been alluding to, the fact that not only is it dark matter, but it's the source of it. it. Now I know I'm kind of encroaching on theory territory here, but
Yeah.
hear me out, because this just
Okay.
lines up too perfectly. As stated in various pause screens, Void, aka Dark Matter, exists in all dimensions.
Okay. Void Terminal, the true destroyer of worlds. Void exists in all dimensions, but his shining form in another dimension inspired the ancients to transcribe his mysteries in sacred texts. What will be written next? Will the new scroll describe a destroyer of worlds, or an ally to the stars?
Accounting for instances like Dark Mind in the Mirror World, and even Dark Crafter in Kirby and the Rainbow Curse's Seventopia, though by far the most game-changing piece of new information expressed by these pause screens is the true nature of Dark Matter. Remember how in the Dark Matter trilogy, Zero's only real weakness was the power of positive emotions?
Yep.
Well, it turns out that was a lot more
important. Hatred, obsession, jealousy, greed. The darkness gathered by Highness has transformed into a corrupt power within Void Termina that conflicts with its newly forged soul. Chaos descends, but you'll be okay. The Star Allies have your back.
important than we ever realized, because in this pause screen right here, it's revealed that depending on the
No telling if it's true, but according to the ancient scrolls, Void Termina may rise again in other forms depending on whether positive negative energy is gathered. Seems the speed of darkness no wander the galaxy until one day he is reborn into a new existence. When he returns, hopefully it'll be as a friend. Void soul. And given its look, it's implied that this is where Kirby came from.
type of energy that's gathered, dark matter will not always necessarily be a force of evil, explaining how GUI even came to be. Aside from all that, using the information we get from pause screens and the fact that Void Termina's roar is literally just a slower version of Kirby's voice, there's a pretty good chance Void Termina is actually related to Kirby, with the game heavily alluding to the fact that
the final battle ahead, Void takes his first steps toward a new age. In a place of tyrannical rage, will he find nap time, gentle breezes, treats? He may even dream again, a dream of friends reunited. This heavily implies that Kirby is a part of Void Termina, like a version of Void Termina ended up being born as a Kirby. Okay, now I'm going to go on a deep theory here, like I need to point this out. We also know that GUI is a part of Dark Matter, which is team from Void Termina. Meta Knight has the same color scheme as GUI. It also shares the same face as Kirby under the mask, which we know this because every time you defeat Meta Knight in a boss fight, the mask shatters and reveals the face. It looks like Kirby. And we are seeing that the soul for Void Termina is the same as Kirby. Wouldn't that mean Meta Knight is also a part of Void Termina? I'm sorry, I need a minute. My brain's working overtime there. Like, is this true? Or am I just going off in the deep end?
That if Void Termina was born using purely positive energy, he could very well end up looking a lot like our titular Pink Puff, rather than a dark monstrosity. And on that note, taking all of that into consideration, not only does this game pretty much spell out the origin of dark matter, but from the information we're given, Kirby himself may very well be the outcome of Void being birthed with pure positive energy. So there you have it, right? All of Kirby lore wrapped up nicely with an Elder God. Well, not just yet, because after Void Termina was defeated, Highness would
before the Forgotten Land came out,
fall into a dimensional rift, absorbing all the dark energy.
Corrupt Highness. Highness has fallen to a hole leading to another dimension. The darkness left its master, transforming into a giant Jamba heart and swallowing him whole. Is there hope for escape? Friends in another dimension offer a sliver of hope.
Void left behind and encasing himself in yet another Jamba heart. So in turn, once Kirby releases him and defeats him in his corrupted state, the three mage sisters who've also been corrupted challenge Kirby as well, leading to him both defeating them again and purifying them with a friend heart, finally resolving the hatred that had plagued them for so long.
Yeah, you pretty much get to purify the sisters if you collect all of those friend hearts. So make sure you collect all those hearts for the best ending for those girls.
Fact, this is honestly a pretty happy ending in Kirby terms, what with there being no dead dads and no dead crushes.
Yep.
Plus, in a completion picture for the mode, it seems like even Highness has finally begun returning to his old ways,
so happy.
relaxing with the three mage sisters on a beach. But wait just a second,
Since
while Highness seems to have finally found peace within himself, there's one more looming entity I haven't touched on. If you thought the lore around Void Termina was convoluted, then oh boy, you haven't seen anything yet. So okay, in Star Allies, there's a what if mode called Guest Star Allies, where it depicts what would happen if one of Kirby's friends confronted Highness instead of Kirby himself. And like always, it's only the finale itself that really has any noticeable changes, since instead of fighting Void Termina, Highness instead decides to open up an interdimensional portal, once again releasing Galactonite onto the world. Except things don't go how they usually do this time. Instead, a familiar butterfly lands on the tip of his sword, completely absorbing Galactonite's immense power and creating Morphonite, a mysterious warrior whose design actually originated from the cancelled Kirby GameCube game. So as cool and completely random as Morphonite is, let's touch on that butterfly for a sec.
Okay. First things first, I love it when games get to bring back designs or concepts that never get that were cut out or never got to be seen through. I love that, so I'm glad they were able to bring that design in for Morphonite. And two, this is a good reason why people that are afraid of butterflies are afraid of butterflies. This makes it justified. Just one touch of a butterfly in Kirby and poof. Galactonite's gone.
Because I'm not joking when I say it's literally been with Kirby all along.
Yeah.
The specific orange one has only appeared in every mainline game since Return to Dreamland. Butterflies in general have been appearing alongside Kirby ever since the very first game, meaning a being.
And how do we know those butterflies aren't? Is it that butterfly? The game wasn't in color in the first game.
Capable of absorbing the actual strongest warrior in the galaxy has been with us this whole time. Now I know what you're saying. What in the actual hell is even happening anymore with Kirby lore? And honestly, for this one, I share your sentiment. As of now, Morphonite and the nature of the butterfly are mostly shrouded in mystery, with the only real information about them being the fact that the butterfly is a supposed being of paradise, and that Morphonite is associated.
On the Day of Judgment, this fletchery fiend will fly into action, brought into existence by the greatest warrior in the galaxy, and reborn as a knight of doom through years of adversity. Now begins an epic battle with the pure being twisted by a dark past. That was the worst time for a hiccup.
With a judgment day of sorts, meaning Morphonite is somehow related to the Kirby afterlife? Absolutely insane, I know. So well, that's about it. Or at least it is for now. To be honest, there's no telling what Hal has in store for us next. Hell, for all we know, Yin Yarn could somehow end up being the key to everything. You really...
Yeah, we also had this game. Kirby's Epic Yarns. Maybe we also saw Yin Yarn.
Never know. But anyways, ranting like a madman about Kirby lore for so long has given me an appetite. How about some strawberry shortcake? Now I know this video isn't exactly the usual kind of thing I do on my channel, but hey, please tell me if you all enjoyed it.
I enjoyed it.
Happy to make more like it. I mean, hell, if you ask me, the Kirby timeline deserves an entire video on its own.
It does.
before we go, today's cool thing of the day is definitely the Kirby Lore series by Wooly Versus. Because I've gotta say, if you all want a more detailed explanation of specific topics I talked about in this video with a presentation that cannot be beat, you owe it to yourselves to check out these videos. So that being said, I'm the Rpg Monger, and don't forget that each and every one of you are fantastic.
Alright. And we just completed part 1 of Attempt to explain all of Kirby Lore in a single video. This is Rhythm the Idol, and I will see you all later.